What you are about to hear is not just a story about a village. It is a story about survival when the world turns against you. In the dry lands of northern Kenya, in a place where traditions are strong and change is slow, something very unusual exists. A village with no men. A place built entirely by women. It is called Umoja, which means unity. But Umoja was not created out of choice. It was created out of pain. In 1990, a group of women came together after experiencing something that changed their lives forever. Many of them had been attacked and abused by British soldiers stationed nearby. Instead of receiving support, they were blamed, rejected, cast out by their husbands and their communities. In their society, a woman was expected to belong to a man. And once that honor was taken from them, they were no longer accepted. They were left with nothing. No home, no protection, no place to go. But instead of giving up, they did something unexpected. They built their own place. Led by a woman named Rebecca Lolosoli, they created a small settlement on a piece of dry land. At first, it was just a few huts made from mud and cow dung. A simple fence made of thorny branches surrounded them, meant to protect them from animals and from the men who did not want them to exist. Because from the very beginning, Umoja was seen as a threat, not because of violence, but because of independence. Inside the village, everything worked differently. There were no men controlling decisions, no one giving orders. Instead, the women gathered together under what they called a tree of speech, a place where every voice mattered, where decisions were made together, where even the quietest woman could speak. And for many of them, this was the first time in their lives they were truly heard. Life was not easy. At the beginning, survival was a daily struggle. The land was dry, there was little food, and most of the women had never been taught how to farm or manage resources on their own. But they adapted. They used the skills they already had. They began making traditional beadwork and jewelry, colorful, detailed pieces that carried their culture and identity. Slowly, visitors started coming. Tourists traveling to the nearby National Reserve discovered Umoja. They became curious. They wanted to see this place, to understand it, and the women turned that curiosity into opportunity. They created a small cultural center. They welcomed visitors. They sold their handmade jewelry. And over time, Umoja became more than just a place of survival. It became a community, a system, a way of life. The money they earned was shared, used for food, clothing, and something even more important: education. Because the women of Umoja understood something very clearly. If the next generation learned differently, their future could be different. So they made a decision. Every child in the village would go to school. Girls and boys, no exceptions. In a region where girls are often denied education, this was revolutionary. They even opened their school to children from nearby villages, but with one condition. Parents had to promise that their daughters would not be forced into early marriage or harmful traditions. And for many families, this was the first time they had ever been asked to make that choice. Umoja was no longer just protecting its own children. It was slowly changing the thinking of an entire region. But change does not come without resistance. Many local men saw Umoja as a threat to their authority. They tried to shut it down. There were attacks, threats, even legal battles. At one point, Rebecca Lolosoli herself was targeted. Her own former husband tried to take control of the village's earnings by force. The women had to flee temporarily for their safety, but they came back. Every time, stronger, more determined, because Umoja was more than a place. It was their freedom. And eventually, something incredible happened. The women were granted legal ownership of their land. In a region where almost no women owned property, This was historic. It meant that Umoja was not just surviving. It was recognized. It was real. As the years passed, the village continued to grow. More women arrived, many escaping violence, many searching for a new beginning. And in Umoja, they found something rare: safety, support, and dignity. But Umoja did not close itself off from the world. Instead, it became a voice. The women began traveling to nearby communities, teaching others about their rights, speaking against harmful traditions, encouraging independence, not with anger, but with strength. Their message was simple: women deserve respect. Women deserve choice. Women deserve control over their own lives. And slowly that message started to spread. The next generation began to think differently, especially the children growing up inside Umoja, because their world was not the same. The girls were not raised to believe they were less. They were not taught to be silent. They were taught to speak, to decide, to dream. And that changes everything, because when a child grows up in freedom, they carry that freedom into the future. Umoja is often described as a violence-free zone, but it is more than that. It is proof. Proof that even when people are rejected, they can rebuild. Proof that unity can create strength. And proof that change is possible, even in the hardest conditions. Men are allowed to visit Umoja, to work, to interact, but only if they follow one rule: respect. Because Umoja was never about hate. It was about balance. It was about creating a space where women could live without fear. And today it stands as a symbol, not just in Kenya, but around the world. A symbol of resilience, of courage, and of what happens when people refuse to accept the limits placed on them. From a piece of dry land to a global example of hope, the women of Umoja did not just survive. They changed the story, and they are still writing it. And in the end, Umoja is not just a place on the map. It is a reminder of what happens when people refuse to accept the life they were given. Because these women were not supposed to survive. They were cast out, ignored, left with nothing. But instead of disappearing, they built something that the world could not ignore.